Hello, and welcome to another episode of Embodying the Logos with Ahmad. and
Ahmed.
Ahmad. so we're like doing this mini series by now. I'm gonna expand it into a series, and today the topic that came up is sincerity. So yeah, introduce us into the subject.
Sure. Well, thank you, first of all, Manuel, for having me on your show for maybe the fourth or fifth time already. It's always a very refreshing session for me to remember to have the voice of someone like you again in my head, just reminding me of the things that matter. It's always good. So, sincerity. Sincerity was always a big topic for me. To start off with what I think sincerity is, I think it's the alignment of your emotion with what is really good. So, to put it in a concrete example, for example, I want to care about justice. I want to care about my friend whose son currently has cancer, and there is a situation where I sincerely care, where I can be there for the person. But let's take something like, for example, there are some people who talk a lot, and you know this person is going through something. But the moment you're annoyed at that person, and the moment where you just don't have the capacity to listen to them, you're doing it because you should do it, or I'm doing it because I should do it. So I end up really faking my behavior, and I end up really mechanically acting like a good person, even though on the inside it doesn't feel this way. But in moments of sincerity, when I really care about something, it's almost as if this caring is guiding my actions itself. It is, I just have to care. I just have to point my attention at something, and I see exactly what I need to see in order to go forward. I don't know if I'm talking about sincerity or authenticity, but it sounds like sincerity to me.
Well, that was the first thing that came up
Yeah.
in me. It's like, yeah, like I bet you're talking about authenticity, right?
Yeah.
But being sincere, um, is like you're right that it manifests in relationships somehow, right? Like
Hmm.
you're sincere in your actions, and like I think those actions can be authentic or inauthentic,
Hmm.
right? Like I can be moved by something, but not be myself in expressing it in some way, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and I can be moved by something and be myself in expressing it. And like I think and maybe that's like a way that we extend outside of a comfort zone, right? Like we get carried
Hmm.
by the spirit of a sincere emotion outside of the reciprocally narrow vision that we have of ourselves.
Hmm.
But then the question is, well, like where do you go, right? Like is that actually leading to a good place or to a bad place, right? It's like because like it's not necessarily that an action that's done out of sincerity
Yeah.
is connected to the good, right? Like your intention may be good,
Mm.
but if you go outside of the territory that's known to you, like how do you judge yourself, right? Like, how do you judge your actions? Like you
Mhm.
you have a real problem there. At least if that's what you want to do in the moment, right? Like maybe that's not what you want to do. Maybe
But
you want
that's
to.
but that's where sincerity comes in, right? It's that you really want to do something. You really
Hmm.
want to be true to that spirit that's guiding
Right.
you. Or if like it's taking someone who is sincerely praying, that person is probably in the moments where they sincerely feel need and they sincerely mean what they say, compared to someone who prays out of tradition, who's just an imitator. They pray because, I don't know, because they think it's good. Not because they are connected to God, not because they love God, but simply because because they, how do I put this? Because they're mechanically used to it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, yeah.
Mm.
I I don't
You,
like
you
the way
know,
that
like
you're framing it.
the self-righteous person who, when they pray,
Uh-huh.
the self-righteous person who, when they pray, have taken something off their checklist. I have done a good thing. That's it.
Hmm.
So that I wouldn't call sincere. Maybe it's sincere in the sense that this person is trying to be good, but the prayer itself is not a sincere prayer.
Yeah, well, like you're pointing at something,
Mm.
right? Like um there's levels of being involved with things emotionally. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm becoming aware of that, and I think it's I connected to my capacity to be in love, right? Like so
Mm.
you have that like existential mode of being in love, and then that gets frustrated, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
something that drags you out, like something satanic, right? Like it's a device that is there by you. That's the way to conceive of it, at least, right? Like there's a device there that blocks you, right, and that
Mm-hmm.
turns you away from God, right? And then that that is pretending to be bigger than continuing in that faith, right? That was holding you, and um, so there's different ways of being connected to that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like I've been depressed over the last couple of days, and like I cannot be connected to my own life in some sense, right? Like there's a dissociation, but like I go to the toilet, like I cook food, so I'm still doing the mechanical thing that you're talking about, huh? And
Mm-hmm.
like, is that not me loving myself? No, like it is me loving myself, right? But I am limited in the ways of expression of that love, right? And like, and I don't even like I don't want to scandalize the mechanical aspect, right? Like we have a duty, right? Like we have to get up in the morning, or we have to keep the fire going. And
Mm-hmm.
like we're not gonna be dancing around the fire every day. Like that's just not gonna be a thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the fire still needs to keep going, right? And like I think that's the other side of love is that you don't let the fire go out, even
Mm-hmm.
though whatever's facing you is telling you let the fire go out.
Yeah.
Like, do
Mm.
something else.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, actually. It's like they to reach a level of sincerity, there's a certain, you need to conform to something first in order to sort of conjure the spirit to which you can be sincere in the beginning. So there's a step before sincerity, which is actually mechanically being present or showing up to begin with.
Well, I would not necessarily say, because like I think you can be sincere to things you don't know. That doesn't mean
Uh-huh.
that you're true to them, but I don't think you can be authentic, right? Because the authenticity is in the intimacy, right? In the knowing, right? You're authentic if you're participating from a deep knowing, right?
Mm.
A
Mm-hmm.
knowing of yourself within the arena that you're in. and
Mm-hmm.
and well, and you have to be true, obviously, right? Because else there's a problem, like there's a
Mm-hmm.
frustration in your participation, and you can't have the intimacy if you're not true, I think, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
just um of your, or you'll have the intimacy on a different level, right? You can see, like, if someone is lying, right, they have to keep up the web of lies, so they're intimate with their web instead of intimate with what the web is connecting to.
They're intimate with the cave.
What do you mean by the cave?
I mean, the one with the web of lies is stuck in the cave,
And
so
we're
they
all
are
stuck in the
intimate.
cave.
I mean, sure, but they're intimate with their level of the cave, with whatever they are.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, they're intimate with what they're facing. Yeah, like their neck
Yeah,
is stuck,
exactly,
and
exactly.
and
They're
uh,
intimate with what they're facing. Yeah.
and that's kind of what it is, right? Like, so you have, uh, you can willingly face something, right? Or you can be caught in a spirit and face something, right? And or you can do both, right? Which is probably the most powerful of them, right? But
Mm.
when you're facing something from a spirit, now you're like in dangerous territory, right? Like you're being swept up, um, and so yeah, we're to go back to the sincerity, right? Like I think the sincerity is like is it the channeling of will? Maybe it's the alignment of will behind um, something that's calling you or something, right? Like there's a recognition of something important that makes you sincere. Um, anyway, like let's go back to why you're wanting to talk about this,
Oh,
because
because I'm thirsty for it these days. So the moments when I was sincere were the most meaningful, not only the most meaningful moments in my life, but also the moments when I could find my way. And if not find my way, they were the moments when I did not hate myself. So, for example, in my master's, I sincerely loved the project. And when I would fail, I wouldn't feel guilty because I knew I was trying the best I could, because I knew I wanted to try the best I could. But in my present situation, the sincerity is not there. I'm not connected with it. And so it's very hard for me to determine if I'm doing too much or too little, because I know there's a little part of me that's trying to get out of it. I know there's a part of me that wants otherwise. And self-trust in this situation is extremely difficult because I do not know my sincere intentions. I do not know what I want or what I'm trying to do. All I know is that there's the step and it needs to be done because it should be done. You know what I mean?
uh, I I recognize what you're saying. I don't think I'm yeah, like I have an experience like that. So
Mm.
it's interesting. Like what I heard from you is that the sincerity takes away the need for judgment.
No. It doesn't take away the need for judgment. On the contrary, it gives you this. It gives you the correct, proper standard for judgment.
Right,
What it does, yes,
but you're passing the judgment automatically because, like you said, you already uh, you already try in a satisfactory way, right? So the satisfactory way is that which fulfills the requirement of your judgment, right? Like there's a
absolutely, yeah. That's
okay,
not
so
the
you have
problem.
basically if you have sincerity, you get a get out of jail free card.
No, not at all. It's not that also. It's not that you get out of jail free. It's that you know what's the standard by which you should judge. So in the first case, for example, the master thesis, I still judge myself that this was not good work. If I make a mistake, this is a mistake. If the thesis needs more work, then it needs more work. But
Yeah,
I
but
don't accuse myself of slacking off. I do not accuse myself of being evil. That's the point. I do not accuse of myself of being a bad person. Whereas in the case of what I'm going through right now, because the sincerity is underground, it's buried somewhere and I can't find it, there are times where the self-deception is going to get in the way and it's going to prove to me that I'm not supposed to work on this. I'm supposed to be doing something else right now. And there, it's very hard to judge. Was I a bad person? Was I not a good person right now? Like,
yeah,
for
but you're
example,
confusing two types of judgment at this point,
okay, yeah,
right?
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I'm with
Okay.
you on that. Confusing two types of judgment, but maybe you could help me discern them a little bit. What types of judgments are we talking about?
Well, one is the fruits, right? Like do I have good fruits?
Right. Yeah.
But the fruits will happen, right? Like they will come, like
Yeah.
they will appear after labor, like they just grow, and then while you're there, you're like, well, okay, like maybe I should make wine out of this or whatever, or cider,
Mm.
instead of eating it fresh, or I make apple juice, or I make whatever. Like the point being, like these fruits, they sometimes they're not fit to what their role is, right? And then like you could judge yourself in the sense that okay, like I've been misdirected or misdirecting my energy, which like
Mm.
those are
Mm.
not the same, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're misdirected, you have adopted a conviction intentionally in some sense, right? But if you're misdirecting your energy, you you've made a wrong assumption, right? Like and that assumption does not reflect back on you, right? Like you couldn't have anticipated the consequences of your action because you don't have the experience, right? You don't have the participatory knowledge uh, that would give you the discernment. So it's not reasonable to look at yourself and say, well, like I should have done that different, right? So with these fruits, like there's just they're calibrations, right? Like they're the capacity to adjust behavior in such a way that you're pointed towards the telos fact,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you as a person, okay, like or as an agent, right? And it's like okay,
Mm-hmm.
like I have an agent, and within my job, like I need to show up well rested, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have the one wedding and you don't show up well rested or whatever, right? And then it's
Mm.
like, well, the wedding was more important. Like
Mm. Mm. Mm.
work has to give in this one time, but there's a way in which you bear responsibility on that level, right? And that's a
Mm-hmm.
different type of judgment, right? Because this is not a judgment of you in relationship to your role. This is you in relationship to yourself, right? Like am I being a responsible person, right? Like am I pointed towards the good in the things that I do, right? Like so, for example, if I get home and I get drunk after work, and then like I destroy all the capacity that is within me participate in work correctly, like I can't judge my work based upon what I do at work, even if it's not working, because it's the drinking that's the problem, not me being like
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
so
I get what you're trying to differentiate. Sorry, so in the first part, you have the telos, and there's the judgment where you adjust your behavior so that you are more aligned with the outcome.
right.
Whereas in the second case, there's how you take care of yourself relative to the goal, or how you show up relative to the goal. And this one is where sincerity is concerned. How seriously are you taking the goal? How seriously are you taking the telos?
Yeah,
And this
but
is
there's
where
not one
self-deception
goal.
comes in.
That's the problem. Like you have different identities, right? That's why I
Yeah,
came
absolutely.
with the wedding example, right? So the
Mm.
wedding example is celebrating something sacred,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but it's also being a good friend, right? And it's also preparing yourself for your own marriage or whatever, right? Like all of
Mm-hmm.
these things are in there,
Yeah.
and so there's a significance to that activity that balances it towards uh, showing up at work fresh or whatever, right?
Right.
Um, and so
But
that go ahead.
here's I understand also what you're trying to say, but here's another factor to add to the equation. Fully agree with you that there's a certain kind of proportionality you need to give, and sometimes you need to give less to the work and more to the wedding, because you have to honor that identity, you have to give that identity justice. But here's the thing: when you're in the situation where X is your responsibility, and you know that there's a part of you that doesn't want to take up that responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
this is where the problem comes in. This is where the lack of sincerity is a problem. So
But isn't that a universal truth?
what I said,
Like, 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 isn't there always a part of you that wants to stay in bed in the morning?
yeah, but
So that's not a problem.
when that part is the strongest, and the drive to actually get things done is being overtaken by that want to stay in bed in the morning, then you
Mm-hmm.
have a big problem.
Yes, I know that
And
problem.
yeah, that's depression basically.
Right.
That's depression, and that's where I've always relied on sincerity to sort of outdo that drive to stay in bed, or that drive to not go to work. I remember when I was younger, I always did have that drive not to study or whatever, but there was a sincere interest, for example, in the subject. Like I was way better at physics than I was at French, because in physics I had the sincere interest, but in French, didn't give a shit. Just didn't give a shit. And I
Mm-hmm.
performed much better in physics than I performed in French, because the sincerity was there. There was this love, this I am studying this. Yes, okay, there's a part of me that wants to stay back, but that's normal. Who doesn't have that? But there is a sincere interest in this, a sincere desire to actually engage in this, and I could rely on that to take me forward. But if I'm stuck with French, and the only sincerity I have is that I should do this, I should do this, I should do this, which is a very abstract drive. All I know is that this is a task that needs to be done, and the part of me that doesn't want to do that task is way stronger than the part of me that wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I'm in need of the sincerity right now. It's maybe I'm describing things in a very poor fashion right now,
Well, it sounds like you want to
Mhm.
enslave a spirit or something. It's
Yeah, it does
like
sound like actually that's a very nice way of putting it. That's a very interesting way of putting it. I even like I'll be honest with you, I unfortunately did try to do that for some time and I think it backfired. They bite when you try to enslave them.
yeah, I bet.
They really bite.
Yeah, they're like, hey, since I'm living here, can you please pay me? Like,
Oh no, 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 no. They don't like that. They don't like that. Yeah, I did go through that phase where I was even writing notes on how to do it, on how to access again that place where you are being moved by a spirit forward. I think I'm talking about the same thing you're talking about.
Mhm.
But it's almost as if something really vengeful within me, which didn't want to do this, just undid everything I had done before by
Mhm.
engineering the situation of self sabotage, where I just destroyed myself working on something that's absolutely useless so that I can feel sick and not go to work. And I can
You
sense
got the yeah.
I can sense the disappointment, Manuel. I can sense the disappointment. When something works out, when I overcome it and it works out, I can feel the disappointment in me. Shit, this stuff works. It means I have to engage. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I can
Yeah.
sense that something in me is disappointment, and it's very scary because then I know that there's a part of me, a very strong one, that doesn't want to do this, and it just gives gives the judge in me the license to self-hate even more because oh shit, I thought I was better than that, but it turns out I'm
You
not.
should rephrase that. So you said that's a part of me, and you
Yeah,
should say that's a part in me, right? Like, because if you identify with it, you justify it.
the judge or
You,
the hater.
that doesn't matter. It's like,
No, no, you're right. Yeah, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, it's
like,
the part in me.
are those you, or are those things that you access? So they're
Yeah,
not you, right? And so are they serving you? Like, are you serving them?
right,
And
right,
it's like
right,
that.
right,
Like
right.
I know which one I picked there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
I absolutely know what you're talking about. Yeah,
so it's like
yeah.
that's the thing I found about Christianity. It's like, oh yes, right? There's what is your identity? Well, you're a child of God,
Mm.
right? Like you'll be like the stars under the heaven. That's you. All the other stuff, no. Like,
That's an excellent way of putting it, by the way. So just to keep it true to my Muslim faith, I would say you are a creation of God. You are in the image of God, and that is what you are before you are anything else. Any other identity is subservient to that, and it,
you're not
yeah,
anything else. Any identity is by virtue of that identity.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Like
yeah.
like like you are sustained, right? Like,
Yes, yeah.
and well, okay, hold back. If your belief is true, that is true, because like you can be under a different authority than God's. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's also the case. He can be under a different authority sometimes. Hmm. So it's actually very, very interesting. I mean, it is a part that's there,
mhm.
and
But it's the same as a rock on the road, right? Like it's there,
I
right?
think I'm over-identified with it. Come to think of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Obviously, you are.
Yeah, and
And when you overly identify, you cannot conceive of it not being there. Like,
You cannot conceive of any other parts. That's the point.
no,
Not
no, no, no.
just
Like, no, 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 no. You cannot literally, right? Like, it's impossible. Like, it's
okay.
impossible of thinking of a world where it doesn't exist, where you're not under the influence,
Yeah.
because
Right. Right. Right.
it's
Yeah. Right.
it's part of you. Like, you can't let that go, because there's
Hmm.
no, like, and it's like, no, like, that's not it. Like, no, you have to die. You have to let that part of you die. And then it's like, well, okay, like, how do I do that? And where do I end up now? Right? Because
Mm.
I think when I heard you say, well, when I succeed, right, I get this voice. Like, what is this voice doing? It's like, holy shit, if this is reality where I succeed, then what is required of me? Who am I? Like, what like I don't want to, like, deal with all of that. Like, let me get back into bed, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And it's like, yes, right? Like, if you take the world upon your shoulders, like, it's gonna be a heavy burden. And it's like, you'll just look up and you're like, that's never gonna happen. And then you lose faith, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know what? I have this drug called what's the word? Sincerity, or a different word would be conviction, or, well, conviction is more intentional, but yeah, there's just like, ooh, like, if I can just only get captured in the spirit, and then the spirit will bring me to the other side of the river, and then I can feel good about myself. I was like, did you get on the other side of the river, or did you just win the lottery?
That's a good point.
Like, 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 who are you? Like, are you worthy? Like, are you worthy of the place that you got?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like, oh fuck, no, and now we're back, getting back into the imposter syndrome. And it's like, okay, like, I got to this place, and I cannot be authentic within the place that I got, because I didn't deserve to be here. It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
that's messed up. And then, right, like, if you just try to maintain that illusion or whatever, you again, right, you overly identify with the non-identity, right? Like, I'm not this, right? Like, I'm not suited for this role or whatever. And, like, it's like, okay, so now you are the one that isn't what he is. It's like, and you identify with that. It's like, now you're stuck. Like, that's, now you're corrupted. Like, that's not a place that you can live, right? And
Hmm.
so, um thinking about it, right, I think you need to make a transition from the sincerity to authenticity. And if you think that sincerity is going to drag you through, then it's like, I got news for you, no.
No, you have a point. It's not gonna do anything like that. Sincerity is not gonna. It's not gonna save me.
And it's like an addiction, right? It's like, ooh, yeah, like, if I feel good today, I took my antidepressants, and now I can do the thing like I want to do, right? And like, it's like, okay, what about tomorrow, right? Like, what about
Oh
in a
no, no,
year?
no, 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 no. That's not. That's definitely not what I'm talking about. No, no. I know
No, no,
what you're
but
trying. Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
trying to, like,
I
set
fully
this.
agree. Fully agree. It's a very conditional. It's like I live on the. I will do what I must do on the condition that I feel good, and if I don't feel good, then I won't do it. But here's the thing. How do I put this? No, okay. Let's just put it this way. This is definitely not the orientation I'm taking up. The condition, I will only do it on the condition that I'm feeling sincere. That's off the table. That doesn't work, because you need to be ready to do something because it is good, not because it feels good.
Hmm.
And when I'm talking about sincerity, it's not about whether or not I do something. It's whether or not I trust myself when I'm doing something. It's about the level of trust that I have in myself when I'm performing, and it's about the quality of the outcome that I get when I'm performing. Because when I am sincere, okay, when I'm not sincere, a lot of self-sabotage is going to be coming. A lot of self-sabotage. But when you reach that point of sincerity,
are you sincere when you do the dishes? When you take a poop?
when I do the dishes, there is no resistance.
Okay,
There is
but
nobody in my head saying no.
Okay, but so then your description is already wrong.
But doing the dishes is a very simple task. When
Maybe,
it comes to a
but
very complex task, like cleaning your home,
why are you making an excuse?
okay, I am. Let me think about it. If I'm sincere when I'm doing the dishes, Yes, I am sincere when I'm doing the dishes.
Are
I
you
am very
sincere when you
sincere.
walk to the bus?
No, no, I'm not sincere when I walk to the bus.
You see the problem? Like the sincerity is
No. Here's the thing: when I'm walking to the bus, I walk like an idiot because I don't want to walk there. I don't take shortcuts. I just take the long way without thinking about it. So the task is being undermined by whatever is.
No, not necessarily. You don't know what you're doing when you're walking to the bus. Like maybe you need to like sniff 2 flowers and see a bird fly. Like who knows? Like like it's like what's the tell us when you're walking to the bus? Like that's not obvious, right? Like it's.
Are you
Like
saying walking to the bus just to walk to the bus, or walking to the bus on my way to work?
Like it's not relevant.
Okay, if it's
Like
just walking to the bus, then I'm sincere when walking to the bus. Yeah.
you're sincere, like in all the things. Like I don't like you're using a really weird conception of sincerity now.
I'm sorry, that was too fast from my side.
Like if that's true, you have a really intense life. Like I'll just say that.
I was just thinking the same thing, by the way.
Like I know I have a really intense life.
I'm having a difficulty seeing how this applies to the situation I'm describing, because walking to the bus. No, you have a point. You have a point. You have a point. I think the real challenge here is the whatever is dragging me down. So the sincerity is really not needed. It's only acting as a remedy for something that is very particular, very specific to the situation.
Yep, that's why I called it a drug.
Yeah. It is. Is it a drug? That's an interesting way of looking at things.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
Interesting way of reframing this a little bit. Because I'm thinking of the time right now when I was having my first doubts in religious doubts, like 10th grade. It was very religious. Then I hit a wall. Am I doing this right? Is this the right thing to do? Everything went chaotic. I was sincere back then. I was sincerely in doubt back then. There was no resistance, or it was very little resistance to being religious. I wanted to be religious. I sincerely wanted to know the truth. And looking back, I had no reason to blame myself for anything. I had no reason to worry as much as I worried. But now it's different. Now it's very different.
Well, hold on. Let's stay with the past first.
Okay. I had no reason to hate myself. That's my point.
Well, I can
I had
find you one.
in the past.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not gonna, because like that's not good. But like obviously there are reasons to hate yourself at that point. Like that's just depending on the way that you look at it, right? It's like, oh, if I wouldn't have done that, like that super obvious thing that I could have seen in that moment, like those exist, right?
No. Wait. Let me finish. Yeah. I know where this is going. I know. No. Now that's the thing. Why do I hate myself? You need to let me know. Tell me why I hate myself. Because a part of me, a very strong part of me, is religious. Is resisting the whole idea with religion to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's why I hate myself now.
Okay. So again, is it you or is it?
Is it you or a part? Is it you or a part? Yeah. That's a good.
Part of
That's a
you,
good.
or is it a part of you?
A part in you. A part in you. A part of you.
No, apart from you, right?
Yeah. That's a part. Okay.
And like when you're small, you're naive, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't like that part is there, right? But it's just moving with you, and you're just like you're like an animal in the weather, right? It's like, okay, the weather is just what it is. Like
Yeah.
like,
Hang
okay,
on.
today is cold. It's like, yeah, maybe you should have noticed the cold. Maybe you should have done something about it. Like you could have, but you didn't.
You just made me realize something. Just made me realize something right now. But the sincerity is always there.
On some level, yes.
Yeah, the sincerity is always there. You just need to you need to discern between the different parts to find it.
Well, no,
Right?
you can even aim it, right? Because the sincerity is at a level. Like this is why I was talking about like feeling depressed, right? It's like I'm still sincere in trying to stay alive, right? Even though I'm depressed, right?
Yeah.
So the level of functioning, right? The level of detail of life, I can only participate in like the superficial layer, right? It's like the mechanical get this thing done so that you don't die later. Like like I'm suffering that less and less, but when you get deeper, right? I'm a really intense person, like, or I can get really intense.
Yeah, I know
But
what you mean.
but then that takes something from me, right? Like that intensity is not necessarily a good thing, because like it can take over. And like I'm sincere in what I do, right? Or trying to be sincere. And like I'm actually so sincere in some sense that it's detrimental to me, that like I refuse to do untrue things in some profound way, which handicaps
Been
me,
there.
right?
Been there. Yeah, been there. Been there.
Because then I have to figure out how they're true before I can engage with them. Right?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
and you
I know
know how
what you
much
mean.
effort that takes. It's like
Yeah. I know how much effort that takes. That
like that.
sucks. Really sucks.
Well, no, like it's just not a reasonable position, right? Like you can't live like that. Like then
Yeah.
you're dead. So like that's not an option. But then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like now I have to get that sincerity somewhere else, right? And like I've been thinking about the biblical territorial claiming, right? And it's like, yes, you claim territory in your mind. And it's like, well, when you have office in mat land or whatever, right? Maybe you cannot relate to the emotions because they're too far away.
Yeah.
Right? So then you have to move the throne, right? Or better yet, you lift up the throne so
Yeah.
that you can cover more land.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
still, right? Like your capacity to rule and your capacity to access are not equal.
Mhm.
They're just not. So you
Yeah.
have to privilege, right? It's just
Yeah.
like now we're
Yeah.
at relevance
Yeah.
realization. Okay, like
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna lift certain things up because they're good. And what makes me a good person? That I do that I cultivate the land,
That you rule.
that I, well, yeah, or that I want
Mm.
to rule, right? Like I don't
That you
have to
want to
rule it
rule.
yet, right? That makes me a good person.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. Yeah.
whether I get the fruits or whether I'm like sitting there inspired at my job or whatever. Like I'm writing articles and sometimes it's just like shoot, it just flows. And sometimes it's just like I can't get one line read.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, exactly. 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 Exactly.
And
Very
it's
much
like, well, yeah,
as
maybe
well.
I shouldn't be doing it when I can't get one line read. I should be doing something else because like that's not my portion of the day. Like I
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The self manipulation thing, the self drugging thing is becoming a bit more obvious right now. Um, because that's most of the time for me, what you
right.
described. That's most of the time for me the case. And because I find myself, like, I remember getting angry at myself a few weeks ago, that not getting angry, that's just getting angry at the situation. Like, why do I'm sick of constantly trying to juice myself into functioning,
Hmm.
because it's always like I can't get a sentence out of myself most of the time, and I have to do a considerable amount of effort to get myself going. And at least that's sincere.
Yeah, making that effort is sincere,
At
right?
least that is sincere. Yeah.
But also it's stupid.
Yeah, it is.
It's like okay, like you're wasting your sincerity on something that doesn't function.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
like
The thing is, Manuel, the thing is, here's the thing. Here's the fucking confusing part for me. It's sorry for swearing on your channel. I didn't mean it. Um, let me formulate. This is very important, and like it's been my problem my whole life. So right now, I'm having trouble formulating my thoughts, and I
mhm.
just got around to realizing that it's maybe worthwhile to mention that,
Yes.
because otherwise I think it's my responsibility to just force myself to focus even though I can't.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just being honest about it is
You don't want to know like how often I said, "Oh, my brain broke." It's
yeah.
like
Exactly,
okay,
exactly.
like here we are again, brain. Like
Here we
today
go
is
again.
nothing gonna happen
Shit.
anymore.
Shit,
Like
nothing's gonna happen anymore. Nothing's gonna
and
happen
and
anymore.
and so the metaphor, like you can also let me talk, right? Especially if your brain's broken, like you just let me do the work.
That's what I try to do subconsciously.
So
Yeah.
so the metaphor that I had in my head is like when you go run a race and like you prepare like weeks in advance or months in advance, and then on the day you dress up in your clothes, you put in your shoes, right? Like you do all the things, you live towards it, and then you have to run. Now running at that point is different than you are walking outside and you're like, oh, the bus is coming, let me run the last part, right? Like
Mm.
that second one is way more natural. Like you don't even think about running because the running is secondary to getting to the bus.
Mm.
And the bus, getting to the bus is important.
Mm.
And so when you're like, oh, I need to force myself to do this thing, like, what are you doing? You're doing this whole liturgy, like you're
Yeah,
literally.
yes. Thank you. Yes, Manuel, I was thinking of doing something like that today. Yes. I was literally thinking of doing this, ritualizing my spirit to rise again so I can face whatever I want to face tomorrow.
Yeah, it's like the positive conception is like, oh, look at me, I'm the hero, right? Like, I'm getting ready to face the dragon, blah blah blah, right? That's the positive version, right? Like, the other version is like this guy, he's spending all this time.
He's spending all his time breaking his brain.
Yeah, like to fight a really small bug, right? But because
You're
he
thinking the
spent.
problem is it's like the problem is I agree with you, but I am caught up in this small bug at the moment. It's almost like I don't have a choice.
Yes,
It is
because you're not letting yourself have a choice by like I am Mark. We've been saying for years now, like, people create the world that they're adapted to, right?
yeah,
Like,
that's true.
literally, and not only for themselves, right? Like, their behavior. Like, you're gonna get your colleague to reinforce the
Yes,
wicked stuff in your mind so that you
yes,
can feel good about yourself
yeah, yeah,
struggling. Like
yeah,
like that's what people do.
yeah.
And
Yes,
it's
yes,
like,
they construct the situations around them. Yes, that's true.
and it's like you don't have to do this. Like there's nothing that
But they
says.
do it without noticing. They do it
y-
subconsciously.
No,
They
no, but
really don't notice.
yeah. But like, the point is, you created this whole reality for yourself that you don't have to participate in. Like, you don't.
I,
You can just say no. Like, today, I'm gonna, like, clean my desk.
okay, you know
And
what?
maybe I'm gonna
You know
make a
what?
game. Like maybe if I clean my desk, I just write a sentence within 20 seconds, and then I don't look at it.
It's so fucking relieving. That's so fucking relieving what you're saying. It is relieving, but the problem is whenever I do that, a demon in my head pops up. Hey, you're being paid. You should be doing something. If you're not working, you're a bad person.
Yeah, but
You know?
I can tell you about this, right, for myself, right? So I get
Yeah.
depressed, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
like 5 layers functioning back from you, right?
Okay.
So I'm laying here, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm laying here. I haven't done anything all day. Like, I should go at least do some shopping, right? And then that doesn't happen. And then the next day
Mm,
it doesn't happen.
mm,
And it's like, yeah, I get frustrated around that. Like, I want to do it, like, and somehow it doesn't manifest. I had actually 2 hours that I was like, I should read a book, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, the book is like 4 meters from me. I should get it. Like, I don't. Like, I don't get the stupid book. And it's like, yes, I can beat myself up,
mm-hmm.
but on the other hand, like, there's a reason that happened, and like, I'm no longer there now, right? Like, I'm somewhere else where something else has taken the place of the book,
Mm,
right? And it's like, and I can go outside, right? And then it's like, oh, maybe I went to this place, but I didn't went to this other place, right? Like there's always this thing that can take the place of the book,
mm-hmm.
and like I just have to accept that, like, one day the book is actually the book, and that's really crappy, right? To, like, be so incapacitated, but
Yes.
on the other hand, it's like, uh, that's where I'm at, and it's like, could I have forced myself to get the book? Yes, definitely.
Mm, mm,
Would I have read the book?
mm-mm,
I don't know. Like,
mm-mm,
I doubt it. Right? Like,
mm.
there's a reason why I'm not getting the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I know that I'm not ready to get it. Like,
this forcing myself, I have a history with forcing myself. So I forced
Yeah,
myself a lot, way too many times maybe.
yeah.
And the result is that everything snaps eventually when you force yourself.
Right. And
Everything just snaps.
like I fully admit that I don't force myself enough, right? Like
Mm,
like like sometimes I just have to get the book, right? And like maybe 50% of the time I don't read it, the other
mm,
50% I do read it.
mm,
And I need to
mm,
give that
mm,
50% a chance, right? Like
mm,
you need to create space for the miracle to happen, because if you never, right, like then you start identifying with the disability, right?
mm,
It's like, no, like I am a person that's able to get the book. Like I am. Like I
mm,
know. So like I need to get that book at some point, right? Something has to convince me, right? Vincer is to conquer, right? And
mm,
like I need to conquer that land, right?
mm,
And maybe that land was mine yesterday, but today it's not. Like it's been taken from me. Like someone
mm.
has occupied my land, and I need to take it back. And like it really sucks if that's your battle, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If you're fighting
yeah,
over land, because like you shouldn't be fighting over land, right? And I think that's what you're looking for in the sincerity. It's
yeah, yeah.
like I want to just sweep over the lands in the tidal wave and have God conquer all my foes, right? It's
Yes,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah. That's pretty much what I'm looking for, and that and a sense of meaning. To be honest, it's not just that; it's also a sense of meaning, because the points when I'm connected with my sincerity are the points when I feel most meaningful. But
let's focus on that a little bit, right? So
okay,
because there's two ways to think about that in my head, right? So one thing that I can think of right now is that you're like in a zone of optimal development, right? You're in flow, right?
mm,
And therefore it's meaningful. But actually,
mm,
I don't like that.
mm, mm, mm. That's not
Like
what
I
I
think
meant.
okay, but
It's
that's the
too.
way that Vervaeke would explain it, right?
That's too idealistic. It's too idealistic, because you can be in a state of meaning and you're suffering like hell,
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah, yeah.
not in a state of flow at all. And then I've had these
Well,
moments in my
I
life.
don't know if suffering is not a flow state.
And that could be. Yeah, you could suffer and be in the flow state at the same time, but
Because I think I can.
super manual.
I don't know if that's a
um,
good thing. Like that's
yeah,
a
I know what
different
you
question.
mean.
Like I don't think flow is a good thing. Like uh,
Well, I don't think it's a. How do I put this? I think it's a get out of jail free card, flow.
yeah,
So it's great if you got it. It's great if you're good at it, but you kind of miss out on something. You kind of miss out on suffering. You miss out on certain growth when you're in the flow. So
yeah,
so
fair enough. But like all these things are temporary, right? Like you,
yeah, yeah. I mean, not just temporary. I'm gonna. There's this story like when I was in my bachelor years, and um, the the person I was in love with, she had feelings for someone else, and it was extremely painful. I
Mhm.
was definitely not in the flow during that phase, but there was something so beautiful about the struggle. I
Mm,
remember a part of me, despite the fact that I was really suffering a lot, despite the fact that I was not at my best, I was definitely not in the flow state, but there was kind of a flow in this narrative of overcoming the struggle and looking towards what's new, what I don't know yet. Like I'll admit, it's not that I felt like a hero, it's that there's this, you know how Vervaeke says that joy is not a good feeling, it's the feeling that this is good.
hmm.
That was
Yeah, yeah,
somewhat there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
like witnessing, right? Like you're looking at instead of looking through. Like I think happiness is when you look through it something, and joy is
Uh-huh.
like you look at what you're partaking in, right? Like, and which means that you're in something bigger, right? Like it transcends you.
Yes, yes, it transcends. Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and then we get into connectedness, right? Intimacy, authenticity again, right? Like, because I think to be authentic is to be in that which is bigger, right? You're partaking in a larger body, and being uh, in your place, right? Like in the right place. And I like before this, I was praying at church, and uh, this idea of grafting came up in my head, right? Because you have planting a seed, but you also have grafting, right? And you graft upon like the stem of a tree, right? And what do? Well, you cut, you make both parts naked, right? And then you make them touch, and then they grow into each other, literally, right? Like the veins connect, and like what is that, right? Like that's partaking, like that is becoming part of a new body, and being integrated into that ecosystem, right? Like that the you are now part, and that requires something of you, right? Like it, like it requires the nakedness, right? Like if you're not naked, you're not gonna get that connection, or not that quality of a connection. And and
Yeah.
and and so, like, what is nakedness? Well, that's humility, right? Like the humility is the ability to see your smallness in some sense, right? Like your lack, or at least your true nature, right? Like maybe it's not a lack, like maybe you actually have a certain strength, but you have to see it rightly, right? Like you see, okay, like I'm getting this strength because I get nourishment. Like I have all of these dependencies even in my strength.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Even in my strength. Yeah. I have all of these dependencies. And
And
that's
being grafted onto the body will provide me with more nourishment and more capacity for strength. And then, like, what is writing this sentence? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you truly partaking in when you're putting those letters down? Like, are you grafting yourself onto that place? And is grafting yourself not completely different than doing this liturgy that to to the demons in your head, like, or
away from
like,
them.
no, no, like you don't go away from them.
You
You
make them.
ignore them.
Yeah.
You graft yourself onto the good, like
Yeah.
like you are bound, like you're a child of God, like you get your identity bestowed from heaven. Like all of this other nonsense, like it's nonsense. Like it's not for you. It's not your portion. Like
How
why
would you
why? Hmm?
how would you translate that into action? No, not action. So what I'm understanding from you is that, so I have this thing that the way I notice that something is beyond my capacities now, or that I'm approaching something with the wrong framing, is that it really starts feeling like a rubber wall, like physically I feel like I'm pushing my head against a rubber wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that's
that's the
distancing, right? Yeah.
no, it's not distancing, it's like pushing against something that doesn't want to budge, doesn't want to move.
Yeah, but
It's either
you can also take the other perspective, right? Like when when I take a rubber, right? Like I push myself in,
Mhm.
and like what is the rubber doing when I push myself in?
It's
Like it's
stretching.
pushing me back,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pushing back. Yeah.
right? So you can say, well, like it's holding me back, right?
Mhm.
From my perspective, or you can say, no, it's actually pushing. Like it's actually there's something that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
creates
There's something
distance,
pushing me away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's exactly. It's isolating.
right?
It's isolating. Yeah, that's also the
Because
case. It is
right,
isolating.
because that's the quality of the otherness of what is pushing, right? Because
Yeah.
like
Yes.
you can
Yes.
take the first person perspective and say, okay, that's my experience. But it's like, is your experience what's happening?
Yeah. 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 Wow. 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 That's a very powerful statement right now. Let me savor that for a second. Oof. This is a very, very interesting. I mean, I've thought of it, but I've never really tried to internalize how striking this is. Is your experience what is happening? You have no clue how liberating that can be. Yeah. So the rubber
Well,
wall.
and I can flip that around, right? Because it's like, okay, it's not obviously, right? But it could be.
Yeah, it could be. Exactly. Yeah.
Like it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Definitely could be. Definitely could be. No doubt that it could be. Going back to the rubber wall, the otherness thing you talked about, it's almost like this, the grafting thing.
Uh-huh,
I think it's the exact opposite of the grafting thing that you mentioned, the grafting metaphor,
uh-huh.
because the rubber wall is two-sided. It's me refusing to enter, and it's the other refusing to let me in because I am refusing to enter. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, but you should rephrase that from not your perspective.
the whole thing.
What, like what if the other is God who's waiting there to embrace you?
What if the other is God waiting there to embrace me? It is very hard for me to see it like that because I'm convinced that God doesn't like me at all right now. Not
Okay.
convinced, not convinced, not convinced. I'm not convinced.
But
I'm just extremely sure. Well, a part
like
of me thinks it's not.
like who are you to mind read God? Like you need to chill out on that one. Like
That's a
like
that's a I
like
like
what
I
what
like the way you said it. I like the way you said it. I like the way you need bro, chill. Chill, bro.
it's
Who
like
are you to mind read God?
like do you know what God values? Like I like do you even have a clue what his standard of measurement is to
Hmm.
judge you?
Hasn't he revealed that
Did he? Okay.
in his Bible or in his Quran or whatever perspective
Well,
you
yeah.
take?
Then, like, do you understand what it says? Like, I don't care if he revealed it or not. Did he reveal it to you?
Yeah, maybe I've judged myself too harshly in that perspective. And that's me again doing the same thing I always do, just externalizing my perspective and making my experience the case. I mean, I'm just saying it right now, but I don't sincerely mean it because I know when I end this conversation, it's just gonna come back. But it's good to hear it right
Yeah,
now. It's a
but
huge
hold
relief to
on.
hear it.
Like, you don't. Everybody does that
Yeah,
to a certain degree
yeah.
for a certain duration. Like that's the battle. Like the battle is not. Oh, is there a rock on your road? It's like no. Like how long is that rock going to keep you? Like that's the battle. And it's like whether you need to climb over it or walk around it or build a tunnel. Like Like you got to pick one, and you better get to work.
Yeah, you need to get to work.
And like it doesn't matter. Like you're a good person if you're dealing with the rock. Like not like your goodness is not decided by actually fixing the rock or whatever. Like the goodness is decided by affording God to have a, a miracle in your life, and that means that you have to keep attending to the rock, or that means that you have to get up and get your book sometimes.
Yeah. This is a dangerous conversation because I worry that I will open up the gates for, like, I'm worried I'm going to use this as an excuse now. That, okay, this is too hard for you. Don't do it.
Yeah, well,
That's
maybe you need to
what.
go through that phase, dude. Like for real. Like who knows? Like you're not perfect, okay?
Oh,
Like
absolutely. I'm not perfect.
you're in a fucked up position, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're diseased.
Yeah.
You need to heal. And do you know what that healing looks like? No, because then you'd be closing the door for the miracle. Like,
Funny you asked that question, and I find it very interesting that because I have an image in mind of what the healing looks like,
yeah,
or a memory of what the healing looks like.
some
But
healing.
some
Is it
healing,
the
yeah,
healing?
some healing. It's some healing, but the
Is it
healing
healing your
is.
problem? It's like, is it healing something else? I don't know.
I have no clue.
And like other things, right? Is like, okay, like maybe when you're a baby, running to mommy was healing. Maybe when you're an adult, running to mommy is not healing, but it's actually disease.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's like, okay,
mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
why are you relying on the past? Like, because this, like when I was with the psychiatrist, they were like, what's your question of aid, right? Like, where do we need to help you with? And I'm like, if I would know that, I wouldn't be here. Right? Like there's you don't know what you're dealing with. Like if you know what, at least if I knew what I was dealing with, I would have resolved. So I don't know. Like it's
Yeah,
that
that's
simple.
something I do. That's something I tell myself very often because I have been in situations where I knew that if I did X, Y, Z, everything would go perfectly, and it fucking backfired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through this phase last month. Yeah, I mean, yeah, to go back to your psychiatrist thing, it's a very, very good point you make there that you you don't have it all figured out.
Right. And to take the perspective of the psychiatrist, right? They suppose that you presuppose that you're good. Right? Like
By
that's what they
asking you
do. And
that
they're like,
question,
hmm?
by
No,
asking you the question.
I'm making a statement, right? Like
Mhm.
they're assuming health, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, you're diseased because you came from ease. Who said you came from ease? Like, like you didn't come from heaven. Like you might have come from purgatory if you're lucky. It's like
Mm.
you probably came from hell. Like that's why you're there. Like, it's like
Hmm. So they're assuming that the homeostasis is your origin, and that's why they're calling it diseased, and that's why you're saying
yeah.
they presume that you came from health.
And
But
and what's
maybe,
their standard of health, right? Capacity to function in life. right? So they're making a functional argument.
Oof, that's a big slap in the face for me. That's a big slap in the face right now. The capacity to function. Yeah, I've actually been measuring a lot of things actually by the capacity to function. Oh my God, I've been such an unfair person to myself right now. Because I had this period a few weeks ago where I was judging myself for wasting all this time on all of these wisdom practices when they didn't really get me through in work. They didn't really make me more functional.
Oh, you
What they
started
did
trying
do,
to enslave your wisdom practices. Is that it?
no, I think I was doing that. I think I was actually not enslaving my wisdom practices, but well, yeah, I
Yeah,
was
you
doing that.
were.
Yeah, yeah, I was trying to enslave my wisdom practices. That's true. I was trying to enslave my wisdom practices.
Okay. Like,
Yeah.
were these wisdom practices accessing God or trying to access God? Were you trying to enslave God?
No, I was enslaving myself with them. I was
Yeah, well,
trying
that's
to
that's the
become.
effect, yes. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
what was the action that you were engaged in?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Like,
It was.
you're trying to put God under your will. You're
Mhm.
like, I'm the judge. Like, God, you need to make the world manifest according to my judgment.
It was more like it didn't have to do with the world. It was more like I want my attention to manifest according to my judgment, or rather, I want my
I
life to
don't see
manifest.
the
But yeah,
distinction. Yeah, I don't see the
yeah,
distinction.
yeah. Uh, hmm, yeah. It gives
So
me
it's
a lot to think
all
about.
vanity upon vanity. Go read Ecclesiastes. Get some of that Eastern wisdom in you.
Yeah,
But like again, right? Like maybe like okay, I'll tell you what my experience was. So I went to
sure.
this Catholic pastor a while back,
Yeah,
and I'm telling him my story, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm kind of getting out of the desert now, like getting back into life and everything. And he's like, maybe you're still in the desert, like maybe you're still in the darkness, and you see the light over there, but you're not in the light. And if you start walking now, you're going to wonder because your path isn't lit. Like where are you going if you're not in the light?
hmm,
So maybe you need to be called out of the darkness, and then when you're in the light, you can start walking. And so that was like holy. Like I did not feel good about that at all. I was like, is this true? Like this could be true. Like no, I don't want this to be true. Like so that's one thing.
yeah. It's
And then
disappointing.
yeah, on the other hand, there's hope in there as well. But
Mm.
it's like, so I asked him like, what should I do? And then like I get this non-answers. Like, yeah, but like I have to do something when I like leave
Mm.
here, right? Like,
Mm.
and he's like, I noticed that you use the word "have to" a lot. I'm like, "Ah!"
Me
like,
too. Me
like,
too.
screw you, dude. Like, I'm trying to to, to figure out like I have to breathe. Like I have to take a step. Like I cannot not take a step, right? And and then he said the other thing is like, and like I never liked this stuff, right? But he said, can you imagine that you have value without doing anything? Like that just you being is already worthy in the eyes of God?
Yeah.
Now, like, to be fair, like, I don't know if I can, but
No,
also I
no,
don't know
me
if that's
too.
my
Me too.
problem.
But being is good, right?
uh, yeah, kinda, yeah. But but it's yeah, like be, but you need to do things in being, right? Like you need to
No, no,
participate
I
in
know,
being.
I know, I know. Yeah, of course you need to participate. I'm just saying about the bare minimum that.
Yeah, there's a weird
So,
conflict there, right? And
so, so, so. Mm,
I think the problem is with the baseline, right?
mm,
Like you have to, like when we're talking about humility, you have to get the baseline at zero, right? Like
mm,
everything, and this is where I struggle with, happens by God's grace,
mm,
right? So, and now I'm trying to explain that to myself, right? But this idea that you're worthy, right? Just by being is because everything else is added onto you,
mm,
right? Like that's not you.
mm. Yeah.
And, and that's grace. And like I've been referencing, I got God's dog from Peugeot.
Peugeot.
They're amazing. And so in
Yeah.
the start, there's this piece where this guy is talking about the light, right? Like which is interesting because in the first pages you see him walking with the light,
Mm,
uh, getting to the scrolls and all.
mm,
And then he says, well, someone has to carry the light to the next generation. Because what if they don't?
mm,
so, so it's like there is that burden, right?
mm,
But it's like, are you ready for that burden? Are you worthy? Because this is the thing that's been bugging me a lot, or maybe not bugging me, but coming at me a lot. It's like when a body, right, can only properly embody the emanation that it's under, right? If it's worthy.
mm,
Because if it's not
mm,
worthy, it's gonna
mm.
corrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
Well,
oh,
I don't know if it can if yeah, maybe it can corrupt, but it might also be crushed by it. That's also a
oh yeah,
danger
yeah,
there.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, like if it's too corrupt, then like it won't hold, right?
It
Like
won't hold. It won't hold.
and but it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Like what's the imperative that flows from there?
Mm,
It's like okay, you have to be a worthy body. Well, like how is a worthy body? Well, like it has to be healthy, right? Like how is it healthy? By being alive. Like how is it alive? By being breathed in the spirit. Anyway, I like a couple
There's something
associations.
I have to ask you. There's something I have to ask you. It might be something I'm projecting on you.
Uh-huh.
Whenever, whenever you, whenever you talk about being open to the spirit,
Yeah.
or whenever you talk about like stuff like this, like the what you're experiencing doesn't have to be really the case. Doesn't have to be what's real. Or when
It
you say
probably
like
isn't.
it probably isn't, and stuff like when you say maybe it's God waiting to embrace you. I always expect that in your head the way to go is to release the past and embrace the Bible or embrace something from Scripture. But I don't know if that's accurate.
Um, yeah, I don't know what that would mean. Like maybe
Mm,
like uh
I don't know,
Like,
like pray, like just okay, you're confused, you don't know what to do, and you've tried. It's all about you're forcing yourself, so you're now stop forcing yourself. So you now pray. Just pray so you can open yourself up to God's grace.
yeah, but yeah, I like. Okay, I'm having a
Hmm.
hard time praying. Uh, like it's just like I had a hard time meditating in some ways. I'm having a hard time praying.
Yeah,
Sometimes not, right? Like I can make your sincerity argument, right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Sometimes you're like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, like I wish I was sincere every time I prayed and whatever, right?
yeah,
And like I see people at church like push themselves towards that, and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't
No.
know, maybe, but like it's also like there's different modalities, right? Like there's receiving revelation, right? Like there's reaching beyond where you are, right? Like that. There's participating in the right pattern, right? Like there's all of these things, and they all need to happen, and they all need to have a place.
Mm,
And so, like, I don't know, like if scripture is scripture complete, I don't know. Yes and no, right? Like I think scripture is meaningless unless you embody it. Uh, I don't think you need scripture to embody these things. Uh, like you might need scripture to embody them in right relationship. Like I
hmm.
don't know. Uh, I don't think it's relevant. I think what I do think is you're not smart enough to do this stuff by yourself. So like you need it. Like
You need guidelines. You need guidelines.
yeah, no, but also not only guidelines, but you just need the information. Like
Mm.
if and the living tradition, right? Like because
Yeah, yeah.
if you don't have it, like how is it going to get revealed?
The-
Where's the revelation coming from if it's not
mhm.
from something that pre-exists you? It's like
Yeah.
you're gonna like walk into like open all the doors by yourself
Mm.
because you randomly
You're not
like
gonna do
you
that.
get the experience. Like no.
No. Mm. Mm.
And uh, so go back to your question. Can you rephrase the question?
So
Like
to
what's
rephrase
in
my
my head?
question, so yeah. So let's me rephrase the question. So I'm gonna rephrase it with an example. So I'm right there, sitting in front of the computer. I'm finding the task meaningless. I'm finding the entire project meaningless, and I'm terrified of making a mistake. So I don't write. I just sit there and I freeze.
Mhm.
Then I start worrying. Oh no, my relationship with God is strained. God doesn't love me. What should I do? And then comes your suggestion. Sometimes you can't force yourself. You just need to rely on God. You need to trust God. And the question is, what is the course of action in this case?
Oh, but that's simple, right? So
Yeah.
first of all, I don't know what I'm doing, right?
Okay.
So uh, yeah, let's do this move, right? We have the kingdom
Mm.
prayer. So I'm gonna butcher this, but first it's like your kingdom come, your will be done,
Yeah.
right? So first we establish the kingdom, which is the hierarchy, right? Then that hierarchy, right? So what does the kingdom mean? Well, that means that there's a king, and the
Mm-hmm.
king has dominion.
Mm-hmm.
So first you have to appeal to the king, and then your will be done, right? So the king sets a decree about what needs to happen.
Mm.
So when you're in a situation where things don't work, you go and petition the king. So like, hey
Mm-hmm.
king,
Yeah.
it's not working over here. Like,
Yeah.
please give me a direction. like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like I'm. I think I was expressing your will, but I'm fairly certain I'm trying to express my will, and
Yeah.
like that's no good.
Yeah.
Let-
Help.
so then it's help, yes, and then
Yeah.
it's like okay, so maybe in this example the king is busy, right? And
Mm.
it's like okay, well, what would the king require of me? It's like okay, like I'm. I'm not doing work, so like that's definitely not a good thing. like
Mhm.
like is there something that I can do to make the work happen, right? Like get a cup
Mm.
of tea or like smoke a cigarette, God forbid, or like just like do yoga, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
pray, like whatever that thing is that gets you energized or whatever
Mm-mm-mm.
outside of the trap. I was like, okay, like that's an option. So that's where you reestablish the will, and then like basically you had a lack of faith, right? And
Mhm.
and you need to reestablish your faith. But like maybe it's not your day, right? Maybe today is raining and we can't dig the latrine, like because it's muddy. And
Mm.
like it's no use to dig in the mud because like you're not gonna get the
Yeah.
work done.
Yeah.
And then it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, we have to accept that today is not a latrine digging day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, like what does the king want you to do?
He
Maybe he
wants you
wants
to
you
do.
to make rations, or maybe he wants you to go to your commanding officer and ask for redirection. Maybe he wants you to, I don't know, like clean your equipment so that when the rain is gone, like you can do double efficiently your work, right? Like there's many ways in which the energy that is available to you is can be manifest in a way that's still contributing to that role in the kingdom, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also like, oh, like like maybe your coworker's having a rough time and you're having a rough time, and maybe it's time to have fellowship.
But this is exactly what happens. This is exactly what happens. Basically, what ends up happening is that I end up working on something I actually can work on, even though it doesn't seem to move anything forward. Or I end up having a conversation with a friend who's having a problem. It's
Right.
exactly what ends up happening.
Well, but then also it's like, okay, so now you've done that. Can you go back? All right. Like
Yeah. Mhm.
like don't get pulled into the thing that you think is good and use it as a distraction.
Mm.
Because like then it's a device of the devil.
Hmm.
Right. And so like to reframe, right? Like now you get all these hierarchies, right? Okay, like this needs to be done, right, to glorify God, right? But also like I'm a child of God and I'm not only that identity. So like there's other things that can be done. And within that identity, I have multiple options, right? And it's like, yeah, like and maybe it's just no, it's not your day. You're not gonna get anything done. Well,
Mhm.
what's your job then? Maybe don't be resentful. Maybe that's all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh yes, there there is a thing that I can do where I still live in gratitude. It's like, okay, like I am the person that can do this every day, and today I can't, and now I can see the value of being able to do it every day. Which is now I'm talking to myself, but whatever. Like,
No, no, but the thing is, it's very much you think you're talking to yourself, but you're pretty much saying my life story because this is pretty much what happens to me.
right,
Except there's the doubt part that am I doing this right? And of course, that's also an inevitable part of it. But to hear that this is normally how things go, that this is actually how people handle things, or how one can handle things, it's a viable way of being,
yeah,
then it
but
helps.
what like okay to go to the doubt, right?
Mm.
It's like okay, so if we do this back into the kingdom terms, and like I didn't even go to the whole prayer thing, right? Maybe I should grab it somewhere.
I should let you know that I need to be going in a bit. Maybe I like have 10-15 minutes, but go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. Anyway, like
I'll check it out. I'll check it out. The Kingdom Prayer.
this I kind of lost it. Oh yeah. So I was thinking about, well, what is my experience, right? And like I can tell you my experience now, right? Like when I'm talking, I'm being called along a path, right? It's like, oh, I need to mention this. Oh, I need to mention that. Oh, I need to mention that. Do I know why these things come up? No. Do I care? No, because I can make the connections, right? And if you'd ask me, I could justify it. But I don't go there. Like I don't know that there is a justification, right? Because like I might have not made it yet, but I know I could make one. And like that's a weird place, right? It's like, okay, so like I trust on my capacity to say that I'm on firm ground, right? And now we're going back to authenticity, right? Like so I'm at a place that I don't know, but I'm still secure. Like what allows me to do that? Oh yeah, no, now I know what I was getting at. So, which is miracle. Like I'm gonna back. So you were talking about judging yourself and stuff, right? And it's like, is that your job? Like for real? It's like if you're in the kingdom, maybe the judgment should come from what is above you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, right, like maybe the guy paying your salary should figure out whether you're worth it or not, because you don't know what you're providing and what he wants from you, and like how much he's willing to pay.
Yeah.
So like what do you care?
Yeah.
It's like that's not your problem. Like your problem is to do the good thing in your job, right? Like to manifest the kingdom, and like not be a corruption. Like and so there's this parable, and like, oh, I'm gonna butcher this, but there's these two sons, right? And the father asks them to help, and the first one says, oh, I'll help you, and then he doesn't show up. And the other one says, no, and he does show up. Which one is the better son?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna answer, because obviously the answer is not so straightforward, is it? Which one is the better son?
Well, just justify it.
Should I try?
How do you judge that? Yeah, like where do you stand when you look at that?
So, from my limited standards and point of view, the better son was the son who came, who actually showed up, even though he said no.
Because and what is the value that he embodied?
His father asked for help, and he came to help. Compassion. Right. He was compassionate.
Okay. Was he? I don't think so.
Well, in the beginning he wasn't, but eventually he came. I see where you're heading at. I made the narrative there. Well, he showed up. We don't know what he did. He just showed up, right?
But that's not the point. It's like,
that's not the point.
Like what's the value that he embodies, and what's the value that the other son embodies, and which of those values is more important, more fundamental?
Well, that other son showed up, so I'm assuming he showed up to help. And this guy is embodying. He's embodying service.
Okay, he's serving. Okay.
He's serving. He's serving his
What is the other? What is the other one doing?
The other one is embodying truthfulness to his words. So
No,
He said
because he didn't
no.
show up. So it wasn't true.
Yeah, but he said he wouldn't show up, no?
No, he said he would,
Ah, he said he would show up.
but he didn't.
Ah, I misunderstood the story. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with him. Maybe he got
It
run
doesn't
over
matter
by a
why he
truck or
didn't show
something.
up. He didn't show up, right? Like that's the contrast. The contrast is the ones agreed with the Father,
Hmm.
and the other one disagreed with the Father, and one worked and the other one didn't work, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a value of manifesting, right? And there's a value of agreement or submission. And
Hmm.
so that's the two things that are in competition. And which
Hmm.
one is important and why?
Hmm. They're both equally important.
No,
You don't think so?
no.
The agreement and the manifestation. Well, if I were being honest with myself, the agreement is at the level of what you see before you.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things you don't see about yourself, things you don't know about yourself. You don't get to judge if you agreed sincerely or not sincerely. And even when you do manifest something, it doesn't mean you agreed. So you can't really tell. If I want to be really rigorous here and philosophical, it's very hard to tell. You need to know everything about the situation to be able
No,
to
you don't.
judge who.
Like this is the cool part. Like I don't think that's true at all. You don't need
Okay.
to want to know anything.
All right.
And the reason why I think you don't need to know anything, but maybe I'm wrong, right? Like this is
Mm.
my interpretation, right?
Mm,
Like
mm, mm,
let's
mm.
just preface that.
Yeah. Sure.
I came up with that myself. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
but, but so Jesus says the son that agrees is the good son.
Yeah.
And like why? Well,
Hmm.
because he's respecting the hierarchy and he's not frustrating how things manifest,
Mm.
right? So what he's doing is he's being a good participant in the kingdom, right?
Hmm.
He's aligning his will with the will of his father,
Mm.
even though he can't manifest the will. But we're gonna always get into places where we cannot manifest the will. Like that's
Yeah.
just a constraint of life. Like that's just
Hmm.
gonna happen. But what's important is that we submit that our will is under the Father's will.
Hmm.
If we're not under our Father's will, we're in division, right? And we can still cooperate in division, right? Like I can come assist you because like I want to or whatever, right? Or like today I feel graceful and like I'm gonna spend some time talking to Ahmad. Ha! Right? Or I can talk to you or intend to talk to you and not show up. Because I think talking to you is manifesting the kingdom of God on earth. Like,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, okay, so what is it that I'm participating in? Like, is my participation, my actual participation important? Or is having a true intention and keeping my true intention, even though I can't keep up with it, important?
Orientation.
Right? And it's like,
Having the
oh,
right
there's
orientation.
only one answer. Like, because if we don't have the proper orientation, things can't manifest. So like that has to come first. Like it has to be
Hmm.
primary. Like it's not an option.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like how did I look at that story? And I think
That's
how
step one. That's step one. Step one is orientation. That's a very,
yeah,
very
remember
simple
who's
thing
your
to do.
father? Like who lays down the law? Like
Mm.
it's not you, it's not whatever demon you're summoning. Like those are all both false. I was like, well, you can buy into that story. You can maybe live your life buying into that
Mm.
story. It's like, but you shouldn't. like because it's not living, it's enslavement.
Mm. That's an interesting way of looking at it. So it I don't know if I'm seeing things, but it kind of meditation symbolizes that. Because when you're meditating, you're basically practicing how to let your attention be under the control of God. So when I'm meditating, you don't
Yeah, I
think so.
don't
You don't
think.
say so. You wouldn't
No,
say
I
so.
don't think that's God.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
it could be, but
Mm.
I don't think that's God. Like
Okay.
like
Okay.
this is my problem with the Eastern. Like
Mm.
they're neutral, right? Like they don't like goodness, right? Like I'm gonna use the crappy Platonic thing, right?
Mm.
Like is union, right? Like I'm just gonna go back to Christian. It's the throne, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the throne is from where things are ruled, right? So the union under the king is goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you meditate, you're not unified under the king. Like 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 you could be, right?
Mm.
But like there's no guarantee. Like the only thing that makes you unify under the king is to be his subject, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to worship him. Like and only if you worship, right, which means that you are binding yourself to the body of the kingdom and being informed by it, that's when you can be a subject. Like that's when you can be an agent that is expressing the will of the king. Like without that, like you can't be an agent of the king. You can be someone who is in alignment with the will of the king, right? Like that's the second son, right? Like he's acting in the world in alignment with the will of the father, right? In his action, but not in his being. Like he's not
Mm-hmm.
aligned with the father. He's a rebel,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll always be a rebel, even though he chooses to participate.
Like a bit of like it's a bit like hypocrisy. Mm.
Well, it's autonomy, right? Like I
Mm.
want to be my separate thing. Like I will do your thing, but only my way. Like I have said this. Like these are words that came from my mouth. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. I still see meditation as a practice of surrender.
Yes, you surrender. I correct. That's correct. You
Mm.
surrender to what? To something. Like that's why it's dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you have issues. Like you surrender to your issue. You surrender to the loop that you're in.
No, I still don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
That's a separate discussion. That's a whole separate discussion. That's a whole separate
Like
discussion.
you
Meditation.
better be sure you're right. Like I'll just say that. Like you better be really sure, and you cannot be. Like that's the problem. Like you cannot be. Like there's no way
Yeah,
for
you
you
can
to.
never be sure. Yeah, you can never be sure.
So like yeah.
It's absolutely sure. It's absolutely certain. Yeah.
So let's make an end to this.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to do a takeaway?
Takeaway.
Maybe say
We
like, did you expect it to go here?
no, I did not expect it to go here. I didn't expect it at all to go here, especially with the God waiting to embrace you part. It's helpful to hear that. Um, so takeaway. Sincerity may be that moment of connection when your emotions are aligned with your goal. But don't bilk it, because you shouldn't have to induce it just to be functional. It is not a tool for your functionality. And when you're not able to be functional, that doesn't imply bad. All you need to do is show up with the right orientation.
Right. And like maybe it's not your portion, right? Like that's always an option. Like maybe you're not in the right place.
Maybe you're not in the right place. Exactly.
Like there's just points where like I quit my studies. Like I knew I wasn't in the right place.
Yeah.
Now I didn't get to a different place, and that was my failure. But yeah, like thank you for watching, everybody. Like I think this was highly personal again. I hope yeah, people got something out of this, and leave your takeaways and comments in the comment section, and see y'all next time, because to be continued.
See you guys. See you, everybody.